2020 has been an interesting year. I don't think anybody knew what we were getting into. It's unique because obviously it's a leap year, so there are 29 days in February. It's unique because in March, new historical record. It felt like it was 300 days. In April, could probably last 10 years if we continue at this self-isolation. And, you know, our pets can teach us a lot. I have a cat, and my dear cousin John has a dog, and, you know, just understanding the psychology of pets and what this means to them as we're isolating ourselves more with them. My cousin John sent me this great picture of his boy, Matthew, who caught this nice trout, and then his youngest there, Henry, was getting tackled by the family dog. And it looked like a football play, as if the dog was just so happy that every day all of his masters were around him. And they have 3 boys and obviously their mom. And so the dog is just like every day waking up and seeing, oh my God, they're all here, all my best friends. I just love following you around the house and giving you hugs and tackling you and just seeing your faces warm up and just licking your face. Well, I have a cat named Philomena, and I'm around her a lot more these days. And she seems to look up me and says, what the hell are you still doing here? You know, it's just, there's that difference. In self-isolation, we all have a choice. Are we going to be more like that loving dog, or are we going to be like that cat? And that's what's going on now. And so the resurrection is a chance for us to reach out to those people who perhaps are closest to us, obviously within the social distancing rules, and be as excited to see those who we love. And, you know, this is also a chance to look at what's essential. Fishing is an essential activity. My dad would love this because it's been declared by law that we're still going on with opening trout season and fishing. And one of my dear friends, Father Joe Freedy, he's a supposed fisherman. He likes to fish. He just doesn't, well, anyway. So he's a good friend of mine, and he seems to, and he even drives like up to like my churches and everywhere with a fishing boat on the back of his truck. He tows it around. And, you know, it's like, he's worried about catching the coronavirus. But I told him, you don't have to worry about catching the coronavirus because you never catch anything. So, you know, there's these things as well going on. And then my dear grandmother, she's going to be turning 95 next Saturday. And our small family of 300 was going to descend on a dear place in Naples, Florida. And obviously, we can't do that because of this quarantine period and the social distancing. And so, you know, I was just thinking about her, and she sends out this kind of fireside chat with Grandma every day. It's about a 2-minute primer. And it's as if she's been through this before. Well, basically she has. Because she and that greatest generation have lived through the Great Depression, World War II, and so many things. And many of us are asked to sit on our couch and watch Netflix all day. I think it's a little different experience than what she had when she was growing up. So you know what? As she says, we can do this. Put a smile on your face and go do something new today. We can do this. Not because we're ingenuous or because we're great. We do it because God's greatness gets into our hearts, our minds, and souls when we go out and care for other people. It's as if our hearts were made to love. And when we get outside of this kind of self-isolation spiritual mode and open up our hearts to be able to tackle the problems around us with love, then that's when the resurrection power happens. That's when the smile of Easter isn't just because we can now eat chocolate, but it's because we can now take the sweetness of Jesus into the darkness and bitterness of our life. And that's what this is all about. That's why we can celebrate Easter Sunday during a corona time. Because corona time might last who knows how much time, but God is outside of time. He conquered time. He conquered death, and He conquered the devil. He conquered the death and the darkness that we can feel. And, you know, when we read all these scriptures and we think about Easter, it's sometimes hard to get our mind around it. Like we can get our heart and mind around a cross and somebody dying on a cross, but it's so hard to think about a tomb that had a body and a tomb that doesn't have the body. And so maybe one of the just little insights that we can take away from the scriptures and the hearing of the Easter story is Mary Magdalene. What did she do? Well, first of all, she got out of bed. And that can be hard sometimes when we're self-isolated. We just sit around in our pajamas all day. So she got out of bed. But she got out of bed at a certain time. It was still dark outside. And she didn't just get out of bed when it was dark outside. She got out of bed to go perform one of the corporal works of mercy. She got out of bed to go care for the dead, to care for the body of Jesus. And so it seems to me that the invitation during this COVID-19 pandemic, that we need to get out of the tomb of the darkness and allow the light of love, the care for other people, to heroically get us out of bed, out of our pajamas, out of our dreariness, out of our Netflix routine, and into the routine of courageous caring for others. You know, you see in the other gospel that the reason why she got out of bed was to anoint the body of Jesus. And these are those beautiful corporal works of mercy that I believe are the way in which we, like Mary Magdalene, can play a role in puncturing this virus right where it hurts, to breathe the life of Jesus into our lungs so as to give that life to others through Jesus' power. And so the several corporate works of mercy, start doing them. Feed the hungry, give drink to the thirsty, clothe the naked, shelter the homeless, visit the sick, visit the imprisoned, and bury the dead. You know, we live in, it's so awesome to be a part of this grouping of 4 parishes, which I termed about a year and a half ago the Great Grouping. And it's not a great grouping because we're great people and yeah, we can do great things, blah, blah. No, the greatness, as Jesus would say, comes from whoever wishes to become great among you shall be your servant. And that's what I can see now. It's so inspiring to see in just a couple of weeks during this corona time how the great grouping is living up to what Jesus wants us to be, servants. Our greatness is because we serve. And how awesome it is to see and look around this great grouping and see what's gone on. Just as this first started, we got a phone call or two from some of our parishioners saying, how can we help? And one said, could we call all those over the age of 70, knowing that the coronavirus could hit specifically the elderly? And how many of our grandparents are quarantined? How many of the elderly that are stuck in these rehab centers, are stuck in these elderly homes, just incubating, wondering, is the coronavirus going to get to me? And so many of the parishioners came forward and said, could we call them? And so we sent out a list of those over 70. They got through that so quickly, they said, well, why don't we call all 6,000 households? You don't have to be a certain age to feel quarantined in the coronavirus. It affects all of us. And so how beautiful it is to see how these phone calls have affected so many dear people, how these corona hugs. You know, I remember the AT&T commercial, reach out and touch someone. Even today through Zoom and all these crazy methods, you can reach out and touch someone. And how I remember one of the pictures that I saw that somebody literally went out to try to touch someone. The dear husband was quarantined in one of these elderly homes, and the wife was there outside of the window. And her husband put his hand on the window, and she put her hand on the other side. And it was as if they were seemingly holding hands. And you would think after 60 years of marriage, holding hands would be something that would just be for the lovebirds at newlywed time. It isn't. We all can reach out and touch somebody now. And it's so great to see so many of our great grouping calling each other, calling those in our neighborhoods, calling those who could perhaps need a little injection. And so reaching out to someone can be that difference from going from hopelessness to hopefulness. Corona time's also a time for us to rebuild and to restructure and to just project out this incredible movement of food banks that we've had going. We had a great infrastructure before with the different things that were going on with Senior Connection, meal making, St. Vincent de Paul, and so many of the efforts in our 4 parishes in our great grouping. But now these have become the cornerstone to just build out into an infrastructure and now to reach out in so many incredible ways during this pandemic. We've moved from 1 main neighborhood to 3 neighborhoods. We moved from helping 40 families at Christmas and Easter and to feeding several people to now over 200 families 3 times a week with an average family size of 4. We partnered with YMCA and are now looking at taking all this incredible money that we've received from parish donations and using that to feed those who have been really affected by the coronavirus. When we started this, we started with 46 lunches a day. Now we're up to 325 in just 1 neighborhood. A few weeks ago, with the extra fish that we had from the fish fry, we made 153 hot meals. And then one of the parishioners got really excited and he donated 100 pizzas. And it was interesting because one of the persons that came up to receive this hot meal was the cook at our local diner, and he was unemployed. And he walked up and he started to talk about how ironic it was that he used to cook for all of us and now we're cooking for him. And it makes you wonder, that second reading today, that how is that little grain of yeast, that little drop of yeast can create this incredible bread of life. Jesus is taking his human nature, dipping it into ours, and allowing his divine person to transform that into the bread of life. And we can imitate Jesus by taking our little grain of love and putting that into the world around us. Maybe in our homes, maybe our brothers, our sisters, our parents, and maybe the community around us. And allow that to well up into 1,000 pizzas or millions of pizzas. Yeah, buy pizza for somebody today. It's a great thing to do. And so we find over and over again teaming up with local churches like the Baptists, the Presbyterians, the Hope Center, even the local politicians like the mayors and the school board directors, and how heroic it is to see our police force out there also bringing food to those who are truly in need. And you know, it's interesting. It's like we're Americans, so it's like it feels like we shouldn't have to go through this. And it can be embarrassing for some people who for the first time are unemployed. They had worked so hard, and now you just see the millions and millions of people stacking up without employment. And their savings can only go so long. And so it's taken the initiative, the care, and the tenderness of our parishioners and others to reach out to those who perhaps we feel are vulnerable and say, hey, can I bring you a meal? You see, a lot of people are proud and in a good sense don't want to reach their hand out. It's so embarrassing to say that I have a need. In fact, I would suggest that all of us need to allow our vulnerabilities to be brought out to those who care. First and foremost to Jesus, secondly to those who care for us, so that this corona time in which we all can kind of catch a virus of self-sufficiency and allow ourselves to be cared for by those around us. Even last night, it was great. Father Jack cooked up this huge ham. That thing must have weighed 30 pounds. And I think I weigh 30 now more. And that was sent to by my grandmother. It's so beautiful to be able to think that after all these years, my grandmother, 95 she'll turn on Saturday, she continues to feed me. Now through the hands of Father Jack, obviously. But it's beautiful to be able to see that. And even one elderly home ran out of toilet paper. Yeah, the big TP run. What a just a contradiction, you know? It's like we run out and grab all the TP, all the cleanliness stuff, and then just hoard it like it's my precious. And so you have some of the most vulnerable, the elderly, and those are in some communities where they can't get any TP. Well, it was funny. Well, it wasn't funny, but it's kind of worked out that our children here at the CCD, or the Faith Formation Program, had bought 300 rolls of toilet paper, and each of them wrapped it up like a Christmas gift almost, and wrote like a little note on it. And this was before the corona outbreak. And then we had them stored over, all of a sudden the kids weren't coming anymore because of the corona time, and Faith Formation Director who was running this, Beth Ann, said, hey, we have like 300 rolls of toilet paper there, perhaps that it's needed. And so we were able to give those out to those who were suffering from the toilet paper rush. And then there's this dear family. I call them the Brady Bunch because it's a blended family. Only they have 10 kids, but both parents are handicapped. The one dad, he had his lungs kind of implode, and so he can't really do work. And so it's left up to Joe, one of the oldest sons of the family, to tend to the needs of his brothers and sisters and his parents. They're in a house in which they don't have a working wash machine. They only have cold water, and they function very happily. In fact, you wouldn't even notice it if you met Joe. Joe's joyful, fun, loving, and he just found a job being able to do some local takeout restaurant activities. And what's particularly interesting about him is that he participated about a month or two before Corona time in what we call the 30-day famine. It was a way in which kids could get used to or try to understand what it must be like to go hours and days without eating. Joe was particularly good at this since his family has hit tough times. But as a high school guy, you see in Joe somebody who goes beyond worrying about himself, and he takes care of his parents and his brothers and sisters. And every day Joe shows up to get food for his family. One day he showed up and he asked if he could volunteer with us. We're like, Joe, wait. How? At any rate, it's those types of people and those types of families that have inspired me throughout this whole entire Corona time. And it is amazing. It's an honor to be a priest in this community and to see how so many of you have reached out to the most vulnerable, recognizing how sometimes we're graced, and it's in that gratitude of grace that we can help others. So we've moved now to over 500 lunches in these different communities. We've received thousands of dollars of aid. Hundreds of our great grouping members during Corona time are doing the things that help the merciful love of Jesus be carried on. And one of our dreams right now is with our school kids. We have, obviously the schools have been shut down, and so they've gone to online classrooms. But over 90 of our kids do not have a tablet or a laptop or any type of way of communicating in the virtual classroom. And so it costs about $50 a tablet. And we're accepting old laptops, old tablets, so as to be able to offer these children a way of continuing their education in a virtual classroom from home. So that's one of our dreams. If you have an old laptop, or if you would like to donate $50 to help these children, it would be amazing to do that. We have a computer guru who will delete all of your hard drives and stuff like that and prepare the computer for our students. You can drop them off here at Saints John and Paul Pavilion or at Good Samaritan in Ambridge. And I say all this not to ask for money or anything, but to recognize that during Corona time, the Easter victory of Jesus Christ can be most felt by letting him care for us so that we can care for others. You see, Mary Magdalene allowed Jesus to come into the places that she was most vulnerable, where she was most exposed, and have his love tend to her wounds. And it's out of that woundedness that she wakes up on the first Easter morning in darkness to find the light. She did that motivated out of a love to tend for the care of the body of Christ. This body of Christ today lives in the darkness of those who are plagued with the coronavirus. This body of Christ today is in those children who just barely are making it by with food and education. This body of Christ today is in those who are most lonely, who need somebody to reach out and touch them. This body of Christ today is you and I, where we feel the darkness of the tomb and need the light of the caring love of Jesus Christ. I pray that this Corona time for all of us can be a time in which each of us can feel the victory of Jesus Christ in us and reach out and smile with somebody, reach out and touch somebody, reach out and love somebody, reach out with Jesus Christ, in Jesus Christ, and for Jesus Christ to help mend the wounds of those in this time of pandemic.